wrapping up Division 9, finishes, ceilings. We went over the ceiling types: contact ceiling, direct attachment of the ceiling finish material to your structure, ferrite ceiling, providing space. Typically, we provide additional space to either create a different form or to provide space for lighting. Suspended ceiling to provide running air ducts without having to worry about the amount of space that we have. It's very typical for suburban commercial projects. Interstitial ceiling. When we run hospitals or chemical labs, we actually provide a space which is kind of like attic space. It's a space that's structural. We can walk on top of it, but it's really part of our ceiling slash next floor zone. It's a space that we provide for HVAC or any additional requirements. All right. When we're dealing with reflected ceiling plan, we're thinking about sizing, pattern, making sure that the edges, particularly if we have long linear edges, are considered. We're mindful of how the pattern meets the edge, not to have small, very thin layers. Particularly acoustic tiles cannot be cut very short and small. We think about NRC, noise reduction coefficient. We're looking at fuzzy surfaces, sound transmission. We're looking at hard surfaces that act as a barrier in terms of the sound going from our space to another space. Impact insulation class. Overall control of the sound, not to come from another space to our zone or from our zone to another space. We're concerned with fire, higher rises. We're concerned with up above, but we're also down below. We want to make sure that the fire doesn't get into our space from lower, but at the ceiling, we're definitely concerned with fire safety. We're concerned about support. It's coming down. So we want to think about upward spit. It doesn't actually fall over our head. We're supporting for the ceiling itself, as well as lighting. Think about chandeliers. And we're very much concerned about sprinkler system. Really think about the pattern of sprinkler system and lighting. Make sure that you have thought about them earlier on. You're providing for the support system and room to run your plumbing for sprinkler system. Just as a reminder, NRC, noise reduction coefficient. There are three visual ways we can quickly measure how effective it is: thickness, depth of the material, number of pores, irregularity of the patterns, sound transmission, SCC, effectiveness of the sound as a barrier. And both of them, the higher it is, the better it is. IIC, the higher it is, the better it is. Effectiveness of the material overall as a material that we're concerned with. Remember, we're concerned with vibration, the source of material. We're thinking about the vibration of the material. We're thinking about reducing the direct contact of the solids. We want to have suspended ceiling if we can. And we would like to create these sound chutes so the sound goes through. And we want to create these layers at the ceiling level, which deals with SCC and NRC. So think about all of those layers as you're thinking about what type of ceiling you are going to have, where you're going to have your ceiling lights. Now, if you want to do timber wood because it has that nice feeling, if some say it's got acoustic qualities, think about your patterns. You could do the Alvarado. Alvarado is very well known for his churches, the ceiling design of his churches. Same thing with his concert halls. His concert halls are not as effective, but you want to think about where and how you're running your lights and so on. Alvarado's initial study, which got a lot of architects started, is how the sound is created. And he had a town hall design in his Woodbury library that he was considering, if there is a person who's speaking, how does that sound travel to people who are sitting in that hall, and how do they hear it? Later on, they did an effectiveness of it, and they found out that, well, in a town hall, you have people talking from this side as well. So you've got multiple sources where the sound is going. And that's why he designed it with that in mind, with this in mind, so the sound goes both ways. Well, its effectiveness becomes far more complex. And this very exciting study, I put the source of it, shows how critical it is here. Now, these are some of the Alto's halls, concert halls. And you can see the difference between flat ceiling versus curved ceiling, which bounces the sound back down, and then whether it gets trapped, because you still have to have lighting and you have to have air conditioning, and what kind of materials do you want to use, and how do you want to bring lighting down to the stage and then to people as well. So all of that that is extremely effective. Now, sometime around late 70s, early 1980s, we had these movable acoustic panels, which were just fantastic. And so now we use these movable panels and we think about how the sound is reflected back to the audience and which parts. There are audience who have certain preferences. So they actually, in very specific concert halls, they would ask what type of sound you're interested, and you get actually seated in a section with a specific sound quality that you have in mind. Norman Foster, it's a British firm. They actually worked on a number of very, very well-known projects, both in London as well as in the United States. So I put a reference over here for their projects. Let me quickly take you to some of their typical projects, Norman Foster projects. They did the World Trade Center. You can see it's under construction right now. They're known for some of these really iconic structures. This one is in Texas. So a number of projects that they've actually worked on, both in the United States as well as in London. But the nice thing about Norman Foster is about understanding sound, and as they create these very large spaces, you want to think about how they deal with the sound. And what they do is they actually create an architectural space with the sound.
The idea of constellation is that we capture the natural acoustic of the room. We then return energy into the room, and by adding gain to constellation, we gradually increase the resonance of the space. In addition, we have our patented Veras reverberators that enable us to build a secondary chamber around the room, so we can effectively double or triple the perceived size of the space to make it feel like a much larger area, so that you can take a room with a very low reverberation time and increase that up to 3 seconds if you wanted, to make it sound like a cathedral.
I think what's nice about Bloomberg is, as I walk around it now, people come and speak to me, as they've learned who I am. I'm the architect, they now occupy the building. They often say, well, I like the way this sounds or feels, but I don't know why. And they don't know why the space sounds like it does, and they don't know why, you know, they can't hear the people walking past them on a wooden floor quite as much as they thought they would, and they don't know why. But what they do know is that it works, and they like it, and they're enjoying it, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This particular event is very unique. I don't think it's ever been done quite like this. Michael Kimmelman is here from the New York Times. He recently did an article talking about the fact that sound matters for architects, and we've known this. Architects know this, and do things in a way that have not.
And sound does matter. Historically, we've seen it. The mosques in Iran, they go way back to 1300, 1400, and the cathedrals, they go to 800. So think about sound, but on the initial level, just deal with it in a simplistic format and then gradually move it up to the higher level.